And now, ladies and gentlemen, we present America's young singing star, the fabulous Charlie Gracie.
As with most of the great early rock and rollers, the simplicity was the magic. Very, very simple. Anyone could do it. And that empowered you to want to do what Charlie was doing.
Charlie was the most musical of all those kind of rock and roll people at the time. You know, the songs were easy to listen to for us.
Charlie, I mean, he's like, he's always been kind of like a legend, you know. I never got a chance to work with him much. I always heard about people that worked with him and all the dudes that were copying his riffs.
Oh man, he's a pioneer. I mean, his career and the time he came along, I mean, he's a trendsetter. You know, just ask anybody who was involved in the English invasion, who was an influence on them. And Charlie Gracie certainly was.
But Charlie was the first American rocker that I saw really doing it, you know. And, of course, big influence. Yeah.
It's easy to root for Charlie, man. I mean, I don't know how old he is, but he ain't a little kid, and he's still doing it good as ever. So, you know, he's kind of like heroic in that way. Like, you can look up to him and say, I'd like to be like that.
Cool baby, take 5. Cool, cool baby. Cool baby.
The day I was born, and my father was so excited that he had a first child, it was his son, to carry on his name. And he ran almost across the street, almost got hit with a car. And the guy that almost hit him, started cursing out, "Yo, crazy!" And he hollered out to the driver. He says, "Hey, pal, I just had a baby boy." The guy said, "Hey, that's great, congratulations." That's how my life started that morning, you know.
Baby, cool baby.
And my grandfather, who didn't know how to read and write, came to this country, poor as a squirrel, you know. And he looked in wherever they had me, in bassinet or a drawer or something, I don't know where I was at. And he looked at my father and he says, "I don't know what it is, but I see a star over this kid." Now, you talk about prophetic things, and here's a man that had no inclination of education or anything, but that's what he said to my parents.
Baby, cool baby.
I look back at this house. This is the house that I was born and raised in when I was a child. I lived with my grandparents, who were immigrants, and they were wonderful people. And my mom and dad, of course. I was the first of 3 born sons. And we had 2 bedrooms here, which we shared. Then when I was about 10 years old, we bought the house 2 doors away. But this is the street that I grew up in, and it was a heavily Italian-American street. It was like one big family. I mean, we got along so well, and if somebody got sick, you know, the ladies would come in and help take care of the kids and clean and cook and bring soup and, you know, macaroni and gravy and things like that. It was a wonderful time.
Baby, I'm coming back home to you.
And I have nothing but fond memories. Tough way to grow up, but it makes you strong. And I thank God for it. I have no complaints. It's just wonderful to come back down here. Now, in my house, there was always music. My parents, my father Sam, my mother Mary, always had the radio on. And my father was into the big band, you know, the Sinatra type thing, the Tommy Dorsey, the Woody Hermans, Benny Goodmans, Charlie Barnett's. My mom was more into the country feel, like Eddie Arnold, Hank Williams, people like that, you know. So I grew up listening to the big band, listening to country. And of course, as a young man and growing into my teens, a lot of us guys would have the black stations on, listen to the rhythm and blues, black artists. So I think all 3 of those things influenced my music. So when I started out playing music as a kid, at 10 years old, I was asked to pick out an instrument by my dad in the pawn shop window. And I picked out a trumpet. He said to me, "Nah, you don't want the trumpet." He says, "Get a guitar to be a one-man band." I said, "Okay, Dad." He was going to buy himself a suit, the poor guy. Instead of a suit, he bought me the guitar. That's how I got in show business. You know, he taught me a few chords, another guy taught me a few chords, and it came easy to me, and he said, "I want to get you a teacher." And I studied for 6 years, read, you know, had a great teacher. His name was Anthony Panto, I'll never forget. He was related to the great Joe Venuti, the great jazz violinist. Very, very fine musician, played guitar, mandolin. And after about 6 years, he said, "Charlie, I taught you everything I know." He says, "You're on your own now, kid." Southern High School, where I attended my last 3 years of schooling, my generation, myself, Chubby Checker, Ernest Evans, Frankie Avalon, James Darren.
He's inspired so many people in this business of show business. When he first came out with You Butterfly and many other things, he's a great talent.
Along with many others, Fabian.
He's just a hell of a original, you know, and when you talk about originals, that's what Charlie is. He's one of the good guys.
Charlie's impact on the music scene, especially in Philadelphia, here was a true rock and roller. And as a matter of fact, I'm very lucky and privileged to know a lot of the old rock and roll stars. There hasn't been one of them that has not been influenced by Charlie Gracie and has said so.
People who became world famous went to the same high school. We all come from the same ghetto.